This morning's theme is vibrant. This was chosen by, I believe, I'm going to mess it up. Is it our San Antonio or is it our Houston chapter? I think it's our San Antonio chapter. I'm 90% confident in that. If you want to find out more information about the artist who did the illustration, you can see their name down here, and you can go to the Creative Mornings blog. Creative Mornings has a theme every single month that all of the chapters all around the world think about. What does vibrant mean to creativity in your local area? And when we were kind of thinking, like, who could we have speak on vibrant? There's a lot of different people. We went to our list, and someone we'd had on our list a really long time was Tish. Someone we had kind of been watching and following, but never had talked to until recently. And so we were really excited to have Tish this morning speak to us about creativity and about her work. So Tish is a poet, an MC, the founder and executive director of True Art Speaks. And let's give Tish a big round of applause and welcome to Creative Mornings today.
Good morning. Yeah, it's good to see you all. So I'm going to start by doubling back to the land that we're on. And I'm going to bring the names of the tribes into the space. This whole vibrant thing about being full of life and full of energy, I think you have to speak life to certain things for that to be true. So I want to name that we are on the land of the Dakota and Ojibwe people. I think that that's very important. And as a part of my personal praxis of being in solidarity with other historically marginalized groups, it's integral to my personhood to say their names. Yeah? Cool. Thank you for that moment. So that's me. I'm that person. Just to start with, like, who I am. I'm a poet. I'm an MC. I'm a hip-hop theater artist. I am the CEO of a consulting company and also the founder and executive director of an arts and culture organization. I will talk about the arts and culture organization briefly. So it is called True Art Speaks. We are based in St. Paul, Minnesota. We've been around since 2006. Our work looks at the intersection of youth development, civic engagement, and social justice in hip-hop. Like, how can we utilize hip-hop as a tool for positive social transformation? We've been doing that for almost 2 decades. Boom, that's that. In terms of my own creative practice, I believe that I am in the tradition of my ancestors in terms of the Black literary tradition. So when I say that I'm a poet, I think of folks like Amir, Baraka. I don't know that I give Maya Angelou, but she's also an ancestor, you know what I mean? Whatever. Anyway, but I think of folks like Amir, Baraka, Sonia Sanchez, Gwendolyn Brooks, folk who were really thinking about the Black experience, speaking life to that experience, speaking truth to that experience. And Amir Baraka, when I met him in 2008 outside of the White House. And after we did this huge protest on the lawn at the White House, and it was like hundreds and hundreds of young people from all across the world and our mentors. And so in 2008, I was 21. I had just turned 21. Anyway, so we're all outside of the White House. We do this protest, and Amir Baraka's on stage. He's speaking. He's like, it's just mad energetic, you know. It's like election year is just crazy good. I was like, what? Got in the White House, we're protesting? Afterwards, we were able to have a debrief with Amir Baraka, and I don't remember the question I asked him. I just remember the answer he gave me. And the answer he gave me to whatever the question was that it is a poet's, the Black poet specifically, is our job to document history, our history, and to keep it in such a way that we never forget who we are and never forget where we're going. So I like to think that I'm in that tradition with my work. So that's a little bit about me. And like, I guess, the theory of my work. In terms of a timeline on how things started, I started probably on a stage about this big in, I think it was second grade, Maxfield Magnet Elementary School in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was one of those kids, kind of like my nephew Che, where it sounds really weird to say that, I was a smart kid, but that's what other people would say about me, so I'm gonna lean into that. So I was a smart kid, and sometimes smart kids, they get their work done super early and then they don't have shit to do. They have nothing to do in the classroom, and this is around the time when classrooms got really big and there were 33 of us all the time, and specifically in inner city schools, right? So we would fool around. Anyway, our science teacher, who, I don't remember her maiden name, but I remember that she got married at some point in my experience there, and her name became Miss Hisdahl. Miss Hisdahl, she loved us hard, right? Loved us so hard that she was like, I'm gonna figure something out for these kids. There should be something else for these kids to do, right? Because they're great kids. So she created this in-school, after-school program for all the kids who got done with their work early. It was a theater program. She was a science teacher. The science teacher created a theater program that was both in school and after school. So she had no fucking time, right? None. Anyway, so this theater program that we were in all year got to the point of production. And in the process, the ask was, do you all want to do a murder mystery, want to, be in a murder mystery on stage, or do you want to do Rapunzel? Obviously, I wanted to do Rapunzel. Everybody else wanted to have banana guns, right? So the deal was that if I participated in the banana gun situation, that I would get a copy of Rapunzel. That was my introduction to hip hop theater, right? I had grown up in hip hop. I mean, my family had a relationship with Heavy D and Tupac and Biggie, so hip hop wasn't this novel thing that I didn't understand. It was a thing I grew up with. It was the language that I spoke. So to see it in an academic space, to see it validated, it was oh snap, who I am actually for the first time in this space. For the first time in my educational experience, my language was being spoken, right? I could see myself in something, even though Rapunzel was not written by a person of color, not written by a black person, not written by whatever. It was still yo, I can relate to this thing, right? So I was so excited about it. Anyway, so I did the banana gun thing. I received the copy of the thing. I felt extremely validated as an artist, as a person, just the vernacular of black folk, right? I felt like I could be myself. So from there, I went on to continue my path towards creative writing and incorporating black vernacular and black experiences into the things that I did. That is where my story begins. From there, I think of my story to this point in 3 parts. So it was that point of life, where's Colette? Breathing life into me as a creative, right? And someone caring enough about the smart kids, the smart and disruptive kids, right? The smart and disruptive kids to invest their time in us. So that was the early stages of the thing. And then I was a youth artist. I'm still fairly young-ish, maybe, I don't know. When you're almost 40, are you still young? I don't know. Yeah? Okay, cool. Thank you. So the second part of what I would say my career was being a youth artist, right? I think that, and part of why, my work with True Art Speaks thinks about youth is because there's this weird thing about being a youth creative. There's this funny little box that you're in where you're not necessarily respected as an artist yet, you know, because you have this qualifier on all of your work. And anyway, so as a youth artist, I think the sort of defining moment of my career was in 2005 when I went to Brave New Voices. Brave New Voices was the largest international youth poetry slam festival in the world. The first time that I attended that festival was in 2005 as a member of also the largest body of, youth that had ever attended the festival. So Minnesota sent a delegation in 2005. There were 30 of us, 20 youth, 10 adult mentors. That was a defining moment in my career because I had yet to experience 600 plus other young people from all around the world also speaking to social issues. I had experienced here, no diss to us, I love us, but slam culture in Minnesota was at the time very, I wrote this poem, and this poem is good, and here's a flower, and the way that the flower drops on the, it was very that. And as amazing and poetic and, performative as that was, what I experienced at Brave New Voices were folks from brown people coming from Leeds speaking about street violence, right? Folk in Trinidad, coming from Trinidad to America speaking about, one, how hard it was just to get to America to be a part of this thing, but also like lack of resources. Folk from, tribal communities speaking about inclusivity, suicide amongst their community members, and what people were doing to make changes. So I had never, ever experienced that many young people being socially and civically engaged through an art form. I was like, yo, this is dope. And this organization has raised probably about $1.235 million to make sure that we could all get here and do this in community with one another. That is amazing. So I was mega inspired, right? And then there were all the famous people who showed up to listen to us over the years. I was like, oh my God, and also people care. This is tight. So I did that for years. I went back to that, directed that festival for about 5 years, stayed in relationship with those folks, traveled as a young person, did National Hip Hop Theater Festival, so on and so forth. So I think that is the sort of part two-ish of, again, having life, sort of breathing life into myself and then also finding a place to breathe, and to exhale, because again, I didn't know that existed until that moment, right? And it was such an energetic space. So the sort of tertiary place that I think I'm in right now is it's the learning space, which is why I appreciate this invitation. So the learning space is where I feel like I am right now, and what I think I'm learning is how valuable community is. And in reflecting over time, it was very valuable for Ms. Hisdahl to create a safe learning environment for us as children in Rondo, in St. Paul, right? The politics of it all are crazy. It was like, my mother went to that school, my aunt went to that school, all of my mother's first cousins went to that school. Our family had lived in Rondo for 4 generations, right? We are currently in the 5th generation of Rondo. Rondo is a historically black neighborhood in St. Paul, not unsimilar to places like Tulsa. Today's the anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre, if you don't know. So just drawing the connections to that place, to that history. So it's very important to find community in that space, for it to happen where my mother and my family went to school, for it to be 3 blocks from my grandmother's house. All of that matters. Also, the community and connection from Brave New Voices, right? So not just the connection that I made with the company, the organization that houses that program, which is Youth Speaks, but the relationships with all of those poets over the years. we have come of age together, right? And we are one another's life source from time to time. Folks have children now. We're aunties and uncles to one another's children. Weddings, funerals, award ceremonies, thought partners, poetry collectives. Like, this is what has kept us alive through all of the tumult of the world, right? I think about how community supported us here when George Floyd was murdered, right? How the global poetry community was like, yo, what does True Art Speaks need? What does Minneapolis need? What do the poets need? Like, how can we convene? Should we come there? Because it looks like a lot of photo op. Let's not come there. Let's amplify the story. How can we do that? I think the same is happening right now as we look at what's happening in Gaza, right? Like, how do we amplify the story? How do we support our friends who are directly impacted and affected? So community. Community is the biggest lesson and the biggest source of life that I've experienced. I think the other thing is like my social responsibility, so which like links back to Amir, Baraka, and why I started by saying the names of the human beings whose land that we are on right now, right? The tribal affiliations of those folk. Because I think the social responsibility, there's this dissonance in terms of, well, you're always bringing up the past. Why are you always talking about the past? Quit talking about that. Yeah, we understand that slavery happened. It's not happening right now. Black folks always want to talk about slavery. Stop talking about slavery. We know about slavery. It's in the history books for a page, right? So there's that, right? Willful ignorance, so much willful ignorance. The like, I'm going to almost do this thing, but not really do this right thing that happens often. And what I perceive to be my social responsibility, and what I think a lot of folk who are born into marginalized communities feel beholden to in terms of like our brethren, our kinfolk. And I think the creative ways in which we carry one another with us. Those are, I think, the lessons that I'm in right now. And that is what is most fulfilling also for me. That is what brings me the most joy. Thinking about the innovative ways that I can continue that work through my art. Which is not to say that I don't sometimes write about flowers and the way that they bloom and the way that the sun hits the petal and that one dewdrop glistens. It's not to say that I don't do that, because I do that. I think that that's important. Joy is important, right? Actually taking notice of life in those ways is mad important. And so are we, right? And if we let these stories die or rest with no intention, there is an aspect of life that we're completely overlooking. So I think about that when I think about my work. So a lot of my work, and why there are no slides, is because I'm hecka interested in breaking the fourth wall. I'm hecka interested in being in dialogical relationship with all of the folks that I meet, in all of the spaces that I'm in. And I have a belief that when you know more, you do more. When you know better, you do better, right? And that maybe we carry one another's stories with us once we have been blessed to bear witness. Yeah?
Let's give Tish a round of applause.
Thank you
so for sharing.
Thank you. I'm gonna hang out. So, yeah.
Thank you.